council into its first official work session in quite a while. This time I would like to ask Ms. Hines if she would, or where's the preacher? Is he? I guess Ms. Hines, would you lead us in the invocation? And then if we could stand for that, and when the invocation is finished, if you could remain standing and join me in the pledge.
Let us pray. Hallelujah be to God. Hallelujah be to God. Hallelujah be to God. And Father, we come this evening in the holy name of Jesus. We come to say thank you for being our Father, our Lord, our Savior, our King, our everything. Our Father, we thank you for your many blessings over the years and all of your loving kindness and your tender mercies. And now, Father, we thank you for your presence here in our meeting tonight. Holy Spirit, we just ask you to rule and reign in this meeting tonight. Bless all your people who are present here tonight. Help us to walk together and not get weary in well-doing. For we will reap a harvest if we don't faint. So, Father, we just thank you now for your guidance, your thoughts, your anointing, your power, your ability, and your strength as we gather our thoughts and what you would have for your city. It's in the merciful, gracious, loving, everlasting name of Jesus we pray. And the believers said, amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, everybody, welcome to the work session, first one in a long, long time. First order of business will be a presentation of the property and casualty renewal. Ms. Willingham? Libby?
Good evening. I'm Libby Willingham with Mallory Agency. We are your insurance broker for your property and casualty insurance. That would include all of the property, liability, law enforcement, public officials, automobiles, all of that good stuff. So I did provide some information for you. I had previously spoken with Al and with the mayor in regards to your insurance, and they asked that I just come and let you know a little bit about what we did on our end to make sure that Grantville has the insurance that you need at the most effective cost that is out there at this point in time. So if you'll take a look at this marketing due diligence report that I gave you, I just wanted to point out a few things. As a retail independent broker, we have the ability to go to market, so to speak. So we stay up on the markets that are most competitive, the ones that are out there, new ones that are coming in, ones that are going out. And so for your insurance, I started around the 1st of August just investigating the markets that are in the marketplace right now to make sure that there weren't any that crept in on me that I was not aware of. So I did that. Around the middle of August, I sent your entire insurance portfolio out to several different insurance carriers, several of which we have direct contracts with. Others I went to wholesale brokers to try to access them as well. So this due diligence is just a one-page snapshot of where we are today on the insurance. As you can see, I submitted it to Travelers, Liberty Mutual, McGowan and Associates, and Apex Insurance. Apex has access to Travelers, Liberty, AmGuard, Selective, and One Beacon. I did this in anticipation of Trident having an increase in your pricing due to some recent claims history and just some issues that were on your account. So I negotiated with Trident. I went to all these other markets And after all was said and done, you can see here, Travelers, Liberty, and the other carriers declined to offer terms this time. Travelers would like to, between now and your next renewal, send someone out to do a walkthrough loss control, which means they would want to visit some of your properties, just speak with some of the staff, and present something next year. But they felt like they needed one more clean year. So when I broke down the terms that Trident offered, I kind of wanted to bring it to your attention and just kind of clear it up. While the total cost is more than last year, part of that is due to not a rate increase, but your exposures increase. For instance, last year, if you look down under summary notes, the auto line of coverage that you had, every year at the beginning of the year, the carriers do what's called a composite rate, and they take the total number of vehicles that are on your schedule at that time, and they come up with a composite rate. As you add vehicles or delete vehicles throughout the year, there's no change in your premium. It's just a set rate. But every year we get an update. So from this time last year to now, there was an increase in the number of units on your auto schedule from 35 to 42, which is about a 20% increase. So your auto premium, if you take the premium last year and compare it to this year, it was a 20%. So strictly your increase only came from an increase in your exposure. There was no rate increase at all on your auto. The same with your property. Every year the insurance carrier updates your property rates or limits by 3% to keep up with inflation. We can have those readjusted annually, but if this year it did increase by 3%, your premium increased by 3%, so no increase in rate. Your general liability is based on many different things that the premium is, and two of those things are your expenditures and the number of employees. So when we got the updated renewal information, your expenditures are up a little bit, and you hired on 2 more police officers from last year, which drives that premium. And then lastly, cyber liability. You've seen, Troup County got hit with a cyber attack last year, so it's happening more and more. You've never had that coverage before, so just to protect you, Trident and our agency built in a sub-limit of $100,000. We as an agency recommend more than that for municipalities, but at least this is the starting point. And as we move into next year, we can certainly look at those. I did include with your packet information on the cyber, and there is a website where you can get free, valuable information about your cyber ways you can prevent it. It also has a calculator on there that helps you to know how well you would do if you have a cyber attack. So I just wanted you to have that and come to you and just say, thank you for your business. We do look at this quarterly to try to make sure that we have all your schedules up to date, and look at it. We usually get started about 6 months in, so 6 months from now, I'll start hitting our markets, and we'll try to get Travelers back out here. And my goal would be to have you 3 side-by-side line item carriers, so we can, have more to work with next year. Trident is still a major player in the industry. They appreciate your business and they want to continue it. So with that, does anybody have any questions?
Yes, ma'am, on that cyber liability, how much more above what we were paying does that cost?
It's $1,888 for the $100,000 worth of coverage. We see more and more municipalities obtaining some form of coverage eventually. We'd like to see you get to $1 million limit, just because yourself $100,000 doesn't go very far in this day and age, but at least it would protect you. And in most cases, that is sufficient if you catch it early enough. $1 million could run you probably in the $5,000 range, but our goal would be next year is to shave some off of some other lines so that we're bottom line is you don't get hit that hard. Okay, thank you.
Very much.
Thank you very much, Libby, for
Thank
coming
you.
out.
Yeah, I need to back up and, get the agenda approved, I guess.
Oh, yes.
You reminded me.
I would like to, when you get to that point, make a motion to amend the agenda, discuss with
Does it need to be done now, or with this work session, or can't you just bring it up?
Well, since you do have an agenda, I think that'd be the appropriate thing to do.
Time to request the amendment.
Okay, I would like to, request the agenda be amended to discuss, item 12 in the HBC. Mission statement.
Did all that go right? We gotta ask for the approval first, and then the request to amend it, right?
That's what I asked for, the approval of the agenda, and she wanted to amend it.
Okay.
That's her motion to amend it.
So I need a second.
There was a motion to amend the agenda to include item
Number 12 in the HPC.
12, H, A, the mission statement.
Yes. We can discuss it at the end.
Have a motion to amend the agenda to include item 12, HPC mission statement. Have a second. Second. Have a motion and a second. Have any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, we'll amend it to include that. And I guess we just added it to the bottom there. Okay. Next item is Christmas bonuses for full-time, part-time employees. $500 for employees with over 1 year service, $250 for employees with less than 1 year. Money has been budgeted. Anybody want to discuss it, Al?
Well, yes, sir. We put it on the work session agenda because normally it is on the regular session agenda prior to Thanksgiving, so all the employees know yea or nay. So I put it on the work session agenda. As it's stated, the money has been budgeted. This has been traditional since I've been here. However, I put it on there for city council discussion or decision, or if it's appropriate, we will put it on the regular meeting agenda for November the 19th.
Anybody got any comments, Al? Mark?
No, just like to say, I think they deserve these bonuses, and please remember me when you get it.
Mr. Kidd.
I would just say that it's a boost in morale whenever, personally, I believe that it's a boost in morale whenever the city employees can receive a bonus at the end of the year for help out with expenses or whatever, but obviously it's something I'm advocate for our employees and look forward to it serving them well.
All right. Next item is election of off-system energy sales margins for the power supply year 2018. No action is required.
No, sir, this is really an information item. Again, This will be on the agenda for the 19th. No action is required because we have submitted what they call is an evergreen selection. In other words, unless we desire to change it, all margins from off-system energy sales will go 100% into the flexible operating account short-term portfolio as we did the beginning of this year. What that is basically it's our rainy day fund if we had some catastrophic losses to our electrical system. We are building up that fund as our reserve fund for catastrophic losses. So no action is required unless someone desires to amend it. The same with the next item, which is voluntary deposits into the Municipal Competitive Trust of MEAG Power. We have never elected to put any money into the Municipal Competitive Trust other than our off-system margin sales receipts, and that the reason for that, if we wanted to put any voluntary deposits into the Municipal Competitive Trust, they would be on the utility bill. And we have opted to keep them off the utility bill and only charge what is the consumption rate and the service availability charge for electrical rates. And you will see later in the work session, we will talk about electric utility rates. But unless there's a change, there's no action required on those two items. And we recommend no action be taken on either one of those.
Thank you, Alan. Next item is the Grantville Cemetery Trust Fund Trustees Appointment.
Yes, sir. Prior to December 20th, 2017, Donald Olmsted was the sole surviving trustee of the Cemetery Trust Fund. When the city attorney on Monday, October the 15th, reviewed a draft of the Cemetery Trust Fund trustees minutes on December the 20th, he opined that it was incorrect for Donald Olmsted to have the power to appoint other trustees to fill the 5 vacancies on the Cemetery Trust Fund. He also opined that in accordance with the trust indenture, that upon application by the trustees to the City Council of the City of Grantville, new trustees should be appointed by the City Council. Therefore, we're bringing it forth for the City Council of the City of Grantville to appoint 5 new trustees to the Cemetery Trust Fund. I don't know if we want to appoint the 5 that Donald Olmsted suggested, or if we want to appoint 5 other individuals. That's certainly the decision of the City Council of the City of Grantville.
And we can discuss this tonight, but the appointments will be made at the next meeting.
Correct, sir.
Alan, you got anything?
No, I don't have any comment.
Mark?
No, I'm gonna have to think about it.
Ms. Hines?
Maybe I should say the thing because I'm one of the trustees that was appointed. However, I will say this, with the different things that have been said. I wondered if I should have been, but then I thought when the DDA was in force, we had a city council person who served on the DDA. And that may be one of their guidelines or requirements, I don't know. I just know that he served. But when I was asked to serve, just so you know, I have 3 brothers buried in Grantville Cemetery, a mother-in-law, father-in-law. I have 3 adopted sons. One was 8, one was 9, and one was 21. And they were killed suddenly in South Georgia in a 18-wheeler accident. They are buried there. And I have many loved ones and friends buried in the Grantville City Cemetery. So I consider it an honor to serve. However, I have no problem being removed from that trustee board. But the reason I accepted was for those reasons. Thank you.
Mr. Key?
And these appointments, would they, how, I guess, there's 5 spots, did I hear you correct?
Yes, sir.
And, the differing factor being with the last appointments being made, the differing factor is we're making these appointments versus the chair of the cemetery trust.
Rather than the sole trustee, yes,
Sure.
sir.
I guess my question is how would we as a council proceed as far as appointing them? Would each council member have a pick and they, I guess similar to the ethics board, or is that something that we would have to decide as a council to do, to proceed in that manner, or
I
there's
think,
just no policy in place regarding picking members of the trust board, nor a term limit if one's to be imposed?
Does the trust itself have any language as to appointments and terms of appointments?
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question.
it does not. It does not.
No, you're fine.
It does not limit the appointments. The word is, any trustee may resign his office at any time without leave of court. Any vacancy occurring among the trustees occasioned by death, removal, resignation, refusal, or inability to serve or otherwise may be filled by the remaining trustees, or in the case of their failure to act within 3 months after the occurrence of such vacancy, upon application by the trustees to the City Council of the City of Grantville, Georgia, and every such new trustee so appointed from time to time shall have, possess, and exercise all the powers, authority, and discretion by this instrument conveyed upon the present trustees as fully and effectually as though he or it were named by this instrument as one of the original trustees. So the procedure of appointing individuals to the vacant trustee positions is not spelled out, other than it says, upon application by the trustees to the city council of the city of Grantville, each and every such new trustee so appointed. So I have the same powers as the original trustees in the document.
Okay, so it's not appointing 5 new members, or is it?
It's appointing 5 members to fill the 5 vacancies on the cemetery trust fund.
I don't have anything further right now.
I do. I do have another question. This is a work session, a discussion.
Sure.
So from December 20th of last year, technically we hadn't had a trustee board. Am I right? There evidently, if Mr. Olmsted couldn't appoint the trustees, then we hadn't had, he's still officially right this minute the only cemetery trustee there is left. What was the meeting to decide things since that point in time on December the 20th was technically unofficial?
Whether you have an opinion of that, Mr. Mitchell?
Well, I had sent an email to the city manager last week. Trustees ever led to the vacancies that had been created. But the trust document says if they fail to act to do that within 3 months after the occurrence of the vacancy, then they're supposed to apply to the city council to appoint new trustees. And obviously, more than 3 months had passed since these vacancies were created. So for that reason, plus the fact that I believe that Mr. Olmsted by himself was not a quorum and could not act alone, for those 2 reasons, it was my opinion that the city council needed to act to make those appointments, to fill those openings on the trust. When I, as the city manager pointed out, when I a couple of months ago saw for the first time the minutes of the December 20th, 2017 meeting of the trustees, which was, again, my email was December 8th, so 12 days later, the minutes reflected that the city attorney opined that as sole surviving trustee, David Olmsted had the power to appoint other trustees to fill the 5 vacancies. Well, that wasn't what I opined. That was not my position at all. My position was that the city council needed to act to fill those positions, and I brought that difference to the city manager's attention, and I think that's what led to this item being on your agenda tonight.
Yeah, that was incorrect. I take responsibility for that.
So that's where we're at now.
So we're at the
Either
point,
ratified or
it will be on the
whatever.
agenda for November the 19th to fill the 5 vacant positions on the cemetery trust fund trustees.
Got anything else?
Well, I still don't understand who was responsible from December 20th till now if the city council was supposed to decide on who the trustees are. I know
Well,
y'all kinda just explained that to me, but I still don't understand.
well, what happened is when the city attorney read the draft minutes, he said number 4, which says, the city attorney opined that a sole surviving trustee, Donald Olmsted, had the power to appoint other trustees to fill the 5 vacancies. That is incorrect. And when we had the meeting prior to the meeting on December 20th, Donald Olmsted appointed 5 individuals to fill the vacant positions. So, when the meeting was held on December the 20th, there were 6 trustees at that, there were 5 trustees at that meeting. Mr. Mallory was not at that meeting. So, they took action. When the minutes were reviewed by the city attorney on October the 15th, he said that was incorrect. Donald Olmsted, in his opinion, did not have the power to appoint those 5 individuals to the 5 vacancies. So we're left now with a cemetery trust fund with 1 trustee. So we have to fill the 5 vacancies, and we would like to do that on November the 19th.
Okay, I understand now. So technically, Mr. Donald's all this time just been the only trustee since
Correct.
that's, okay.
Correct.
Does the surviving trustee of the trust need to make an application to the city of Grantville to have those appointments made by the city council?
He has verbally, if it has to be in writing, he has not done it in writing.
I think that Mr. Olmsted should make a written application to the city of Grantville to have new trustees appointed to the Grantville Cemetery Trust Fund.
Sir?
I mean, having something in writing is far better than having a verbal agreement. And I'm all in favor of doing things right. So I would respectfully ask that we get a written agreement from him that we appoint the new members of the trust fund.
Sir.
Thank you.
And you know, don't misunderstand me, I don't have any reservations about who was suggested to be the new trustees. I don't know why they take that wrong. I just, obviously it wasn't done right, so.
Now we seize the opportunity to do it right.
Anybody else?
Yeah, so if I come back to my original question, are we going to bring each council member bring a name of someone, as long as the application's been submitted appropriately and it goes through that process and it comes to us next meeting night? Does each council member bring a name of a willing member or a willing potential member?
I don't think there is any application.
Well, no, when I use the term application as he's submitting his request for 5 new members, but we're not just gonna come here on the 19th and boom, there's 5 new members. We have to pick them.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, I guess,
The method and procedure of nominating individuals to serve as trustees for the cemetery trust fund is within the discretion of the city council.
Right, okay.
If they want to say each member suggests one, or if they want to say, here's a menu of 22 individuals, rank them who you would select as the first. That procedure is not defined in the trust indenture.
Right, it would be my recommendation, well, I would suggest that we each bring a name of somebody that we have spoken with, or, and a willing, qualified person.
And I'd suggest that, you know, if you got more than one. then
Sure.
You talk to them. They'll be willing to do it.
I think we've got a good group, and there may be more. Is there a number of 5? Is that the magic number?
There's 5 vacancies.
Okay. Which, who knows, some of them may want to bail out now, you know?
That's not a good thing to bail out. I believe, if we follow the procedure that, and I think somebody already said this, follow the procedure that we followed in selecting our people for the ethics board, it has worked. I think each city council person brought in 1 name or 2 names, and so after, as Mr. Key has said, after we asked them if they were willing to serve, and then we submitted the names. So, that's just my humble opinion.
Any further discussion on that? All right, we'll move on to Pitt Circle and Hawkins Street use of splash funds for resurfacing.
Yes, sir. If we all remember back to June the 11th, 2018, the recommendation from the Street and Public Works Committee on approval of surveying Pitt Circle and Hawkins Street for road improvements was adopted. The surveying has been done. We are now at the point where it is up in the city council's discretion whether or not they want to continue to move forward with the paving of Pitt Circle and Hawkins Street utilizing special purpose local option sales tax funds. The survey has been completed. We have deeds that have to be executed for some rights of way that were prepared by the city attorney. But we are to the point, and I shouldn't have said but, however, we're to the point now that it is up to the city council whether or not they want to move forward with the project. Because we need to put specifications together, and then we will bid out this project. Although I will say that our previous contractor for West Grantville Road and Lowry Road has apparently a contract with Coweta County which contains unit costs which would enable us to piggyback off that contract as we did for West Grantville Road and Lowry Road. That's an acceptable way to get the project underway. The city attorney has been given a copy of that contract. Obviously, it is voluminous and it'll take some time to review. However, the next step if the city council approves the project, will be to acquire the rights of way, and then the city attorney will prepare specifications for the project. I'm sorry, I think I said city attorney. The city engineer will prepare specifications for the project. Which leads me to say we need a motion to move forward if that is the will of the city council.
That motion will be requested on the regular meeting.
Correct, sir, on the 19th. So, there's no questions on that?
I
On the 19th,
19th of November, sir. That is our special called meeting, because otherwise it would be on the Monday after Thanksgiving, which traditionally we have not had that meeting. So the mayor has called a special called meeting, which we announced back in October. That'll be next Monday.
When you mentioned that we can piggyback with Coweta County, I'm assuming that we get a better, usually a better bid because of the work, so they do so much work. Now that was Atlanta, was that Atlanta paving?
Atlanta Concrete and Paving was the previous contractor who did Lowry Road in West Grantville and Grady Smith and Pine Street. And yes, we get a more competitive price because of Coweta County bidding out all their road work.
And we were perfectly satisfied with what they did.
We were.
Okay, that's all I got.
The paving on Ward Street is coming up later in our agenda.
Yes, sir.
Can that as well be piggybacked into that process?
If that is the desire of the city council, yes, sir.
Okay. That's all I had.
I would just say that I hope we can move forward on this pit circle and Hawkins Street, because it's truly long overdue, and they would welcome nice roads to drive on. That's it.
Mr. Key. All right, nothing further on that one. We will move on to broadband assessment and feasibility study. You want to
Just a minute, sir. I have to mention that. On the broadband assessment and feasibility study, on September the 26th, 2018, we had a presentation by Nokia talking about building a fiber network that provides a basis for upgrading communication systems and can be leveraged to provide ultra high-speed broadband access and other services to homes and businesses. On October the 30th, 2018, we had a presentation by Innovative Computer Applications providing internet connectivity throughout the city of Grantville using wireless technology. So, we've had 2 presentations, and as one presentation pointed out, our next step would be to have a broadband assessment and feasibility study. So what was included in our work session agenda package was an article about a broadband assessment and feasibility study and a sample proposal that was sent out by a county for a broadband assessment and feasibility study. And a third article, which was questions and answers about a broadband needs assessment and feasibility study. So I bring that forward to the City Council for their discussion and suggestion on what next step to take as we attempt to improve our internet connectivity throughout the city of Grantville.
So is this something that's gonna come up at our next regular meeting? A yes or no?
Depending on the discussion in the work session agenda, whether or not we go forward with a broadband assessment and feasibility study, or if the city council wants to go in another direction.
Well, do we have and I'm just asking because I don't know, is there anybody else, or do we have on the horizon possibly a third option for a internet provider? I mean, we listened to Nokia, we listened to Tim Beach's for both presentations. I just wondered, you know, it'd be nice if we had another option, but we may not. And you'd want to hear all of those before you got to this, I guess, but I didn't know if anybody else had anything new coming as far as that goes.
Well, previously, we had been contacted, and I believe I'm getting the name of the business correct, Net Atlantic, who suggested a program of cable and Wi-Fi with they submitted a proposal, and this proposal came prior to my tenure, but I did receive a copy of it. So it is old. I could certainly contact them, but it is really up to the city council how we go about our internet connectivity. Do we want to do a broadband assessment and feasibility study throughout the community? We have had one provider that says it would cost up to $35,000. Do we want to put out a proposal as the sample request is in the agenda package? It would say the city of Grantville is seeking proposals for a broadband feasibility engineering study. This is what the sample says. The purpose of this RFP is to provide the city with the information needed to analyze, suggest, and implement the best solutions to improve broadband connectivity across our entire city so that our networks are an asset for community and economic development. The city recognizes reaching our goal may require a mix of technology and phased build-out plans. Flexibility, ingenuity, and innovation, along with a cohesiveness in the design, will be necessary to reach the ultimate goal of digitally connecting the city's entities through a world-class next-generation network. That is the best introduction to a broadband assessment and feasibility study I could find on the internet. Frankly, I will say this without a doubt, this is uncharted waters for me to recommend anything to anyone because I do not have that technical capability. So what I did was search the internet for something I thought was appropriate.
Well, that's why I'm asking, because I don't know no more about it than you do, Al. But the broadband assessment and feasibility study would make a recommendation to us of what kind of system we should consider, or would it compare the two that we've already heard? Or would it just answer the question of how many people want it?
Well, I think within it, it would contain a market survey. So that would be about what penetration could you expect in your community, but the totality of the broadband assessment and feasibility study would tell you what capabilities or what technologies they feel the person doing the broadband assessment and feasibility would be the best for the city of Grantville.
Okay, I understand. These are just big decisions to make, and I just want to ask.
The number kicked around about a feasibility study is $35,000.
That came from one internet provider of broadband assessments and feasibility study. That wasn't a hard number, that was an estimate. So if we went out for requests for proposals, we would see what that provider, if they responded along with other providers, would offer.
My thought is that where we mail utility bills out to every house in Grantville, would it be feasible to put a questionnaire in with the utility bill to get our own feeling how many people would be interested in switching from their current providers over to the new plan?
Well, that certainly is a possibility, but we ran an internet survey on our website. We could do that again, or we could put a questionnaire in the utility bill. Whatever the city council feels is appropriate, we can do.
Survey is, a lot of these people don't have internet. But they all get their electricity or their water or their sewer from the city of Grantville. So if we went about it at 5 or 10 cents a page to 1,200 homes, 1,300 homes, We're talking pennies compared to a $35,000 feasibility study. I think it would be in our best interest to find out how many people will switch from who they have now over to a city-provided service, especially when we're talking about spending $500,000 to $2.4 million. And it'd be a cheap way to get an answer to a question. How many of you are interested? And what GMA says they will print those documents for us for a reasonable fee, we should take advantage of that, I believe. Just my thoughts.
Sir,
Anything else?
No, sir.
Ruby?
I would just, I concur with Mr. King. I like surveys. They really tend to give you a good picture of what people really like and what they would prefer. It was interesting. I was unable to be at the Nokia presentation. My husband was in the hospital. But the last, Tim Bish, I believe, was here. And when he finished his presentation, and I was talking to a resident that lives on Jenny Road, and I said, what did you think of his presentation? She said, I'm ready to sign up now. And she was just really impressed. I think he gave out a figure like $59. And please let me be honest and tell you this. I don't know anything about internet like I should, and I haven't tried to study like I should. But I thought his presentation was good as well as she did, and there may have been others. And I believe a survey could give us insight as to what citizens really want. Thank you.
I would just add that Grantville needs internet and we need to do what it takes to make it happen.
And I concur with you, and I think we need to do it sooner rather than later. I've seen it come up before, and if we get to this point and then they get bogged down with, well, we need a survey. We need to find out how many people would do it. And, you know, even if I signed it, yeah, I would change. It's not a contract. Somebody else come down the road, you know. I think we just need to decide, you know, if there's, and I know the question has come up about, well, this fiber optic offers certain things that the other one wouldn't do, but I think we need to, and I'm certainly not the one to do it, but have an expert sit here and when something comes up, well, this won't accomplish that or whatever, discuss it. Yes, it will, or no, it won't, you know, and if there are things that one would offer over the other, then we need to look at that, but everything being equal, I think the presentation of that ICA, you know, if they can do it, the two advantages in my mind right now is we can get this city covered rapidly, and if it's as good as the rest of the other one, a whole lot cheaper, not cheaper, inexpensive, a whole lot less expensive, and I think we need to decide on it rather than just keep pushing it down the road. But that's my thoughts.
Well, I don't think we're kicking the can about this. I'll be perfectly honest. I'm intimidated about making a decision about the internet. Not that I ain't for it. I just wanna make sure when I decide, I make the right decision. I will say, when I ask about the options, that's important to me. I mean, at first, we looked at a 2.5, 2+, I'll say, let me make sure I state this right, $2+ million project with Nokia, and now we're looking at $500,000. That's a lot of difference. But it's still $500,000. And I will say, a broadband assessment feasibility study, I've looked through this while everybody that's making, there's no stone unturned in it. I'm just not ready to say yes on something without some sort of research into, not if it only works, but how well it's gonna be serviced after it's established.
Anybody else?
I will contact GMA
Thank you.
and see if they can shed some light. They talk about IT in a box. I'll contact them. See if they can lend their expertise to our city council.
All right. Next item is the water leak detection survey results.
Yes, sir. We got the results back. Basically, there were 7 distribution leaks that were confirmed. These 7 leaks were wasting approximately 10 gallons per minute, or 14,400 gallons per day at $2.96 per 1,000 gallons. That means we're wasting approximately $1,278.72 per month. These distribution leaks, the whole survey is back behind it, but the recommendation obviously is to repair the 7 identified leaks, and we're working on that. Mostly they were with fire hydrants. The nice thing to know, if there is something nice to know, is that the water leaks were approximately 6% in our distribution system, not like we thought of 30 to 39% in our distribution system. So as you see, the water loss contributors, our distribution system is 6%. We have other water leaks that occur. We have our splash park, which uses a lot of water. I understand it's not in operation now. And we're looking at our water leaks for unmetered water, and we have some in our spray field, and we have maintenance activities. But the water leak detection survey, we will implement all the recommendations to lower our water loss, save for purchasing equipment and training to implement an in-house leak detection program. The equipment is quite expensive, and with the amount of water leaks that were found, it doesn't seem to be economically feasible to spend the amount for the equipment that would be necessary to run our own in-house detection program. So, we will work on plugging leaks, fixing the identifiable leaks, and upgrading our meters, about water loss through the meter, And other than that, I think the water leak detection survey answered a lot of our questions in a positive manner. And I will say Match Point did a super job doing what they do. That is listening for water leaks throughout our system.
Any discussion on that?
I took the time to read through their study, and it's involved. I believe they did a very comprehensive job of getting the water leaks identified. A couple of things I did note, and not that the equipment is something the city of Grantville is going to need, but there are things that we can do to answer some questions that will come up in the future. That would include installing water meters at the splash park, at the city hall, at the Glanton Elementary School, the places that we consume water, but it's unmetered. And we would install those meters, not for the point of billing, but for a point of knowing where the water went. It can help us determine if we have a leak elsewhere within the city. If we know how much water the city itself is using in an unmetered type of an atmosphere. They can probably calculate how many gallons they use when they flush out hydrants. Those are the type of things that will take that study from 6% of water loss down to a 0.6% of water loss. And it may be beneficial to the city and something that we should consider.
Yes, sir.
It's a good idea. Do we have city properties that are not being metered now?
Not to my knowledge.
I'm gonna
But
say
I
that.
understand what Councilmember King saying, when we flush hydrants, maybe we ought to measure that water. Maybe we ought to measure the water in our maintenance activities, which we don't do. We estimate it, but we don't measure it. But there is no city property, Glanton, Splash Park or anything, but the Splash Park uses a lot of water. And we do meter, I don't know if we meter the Splash Park, but Glanton Elementary we do, city properties we do.
And I thought the sales point of that splash park was that water would be recycled and be very little water usage on that thing. Is that not true?
I don't know. I wasn't here when the Splash Park was designed, so I don't know.
Well, that was the selling point, that it would be reused through chlorination and so forth, fed back into the system. But, you know, you're gonna have some because kids take it home on their bathing suits and stuff like that, but anyway.
And evaporation.
Yeah.
The splash park does use a water reclamation center. I've seen it myself, gone over with the former director of public, of the splash park. And they've got a very large retention center for the water, a treatment center for the water, but you will lose water through evaporation and carry off, just like we did in the car wash industry. So.
Anybody else? Next item, the planning zoning commission items.
Sir, I think we have the electrical rate study.
Oh, I'm sorry. Overlook that one. Okay, electrical. Service 2017 results.
The electrical rate study is put here mostly for information. Tomorrow, I will attend a meeting in Forsyth put on by MEAG Analytical Services about setting electrical rates. If you go to page 5 of the insert titled Electric COS, that's cost of service rate class allocations, you will see 2 yellow highlighted boxes. The bottom one talks about the margin. And when we go to the column of residential, you will notice that the margin is minus 1.4%. That is the portion that we need to be somewhat concerned about. The average price for providing a kilowatt per hour is 12.6, and the price is the cost is 12.4 and the price is 12.6. In other words, we're losing money on it. Again, this is comprehensive, but what ideally would be the margins would be at least at 0. So when you look across the margin for commercial, 7.1, municipal 1.8, school 7.2, security lighting 12.4, and street lighting 28%. We are going to work on that and bring back a cost allocation to the city council that makes it more revenue neutral. But this is a work in progress. The mayor and I had a chance to sit down with Sarah Leonard from Electric Cities of Georgia and talk about rates. And frankly, talking about all the numbers is mind-boggling unless you can sit down and chart them all out, which we didn't have the opportunity to do. When you look at your purchase of your power, 73% of those are fixed costs and 27% are variable. However, when we look at residential revenues, only 7% are fixed and 93% variable. We would like to have a gradual realignment of the fixed and variable charges. As I said, this is a work in progress and no action need be taken. However, this is forwarded to you for information in this work session, and we will be discussing it later as we come up with a recommended solution.
Anybody got any questions, comments? Now, up to the planning and zoning.
Yes, sir. As we know, the planning commission came forward with 2 recommendations, which we tabled for further information. So the city attorney, the city engineer, talking with the planning commissioners at their planning commission meeting, came up with 2 recommendations. One, that Lone Oak Road, the portion within the city, be signed for no through trucks, and that Ward Street be paved and maintained. And I believe in your agenda package is an email from the city engineer concerning his recommendations. As for a no-through truck route for Lone Oak Road, he says within the city of Grantville, alternative truck routes that should be used by truck traffic include US Highway 29, State Route 14, and I-85. These roads have a pavement cross-section that is suitable for truck traffic. He feels that Lone Oak Road is not suitable for heavy truck traffic and will deteriorate quickly under heavy traffic. I take it from that, his recommendation would be that the city council approved Lone Oak Road for a no-through truck route.
I think we do have some excess use of because of the regional landfill, and maybe it's something to consider. Or at the next meeting. Because and as far as the paving goes, is that the road on the other side of the railroad track across the interstate, Ward Road over there? How many people live there? That's something to look at, I guess. But the paving project will be decided on later. These are 2 different things. I mean, they won't come up in the next meeting.
Well, if it is the desire of the city council
Okay, I understand.
to make a decision on one or both, that is in the discretion
Okay.
of the city council.
Okay, that's all I got.
Anybody else?
Well, maybe we need to have a street and public work meeting concerning these roads. We are thinking that. So the citizen can come and have input if they so desire. That's what I
That
think.
would be so. Yeah, I think that's why I approached.
You do?
I do.
Mr. Key thinks it's a wise approach.
I
You
do
think it's a
too.
wise approach? Okay, let's be wise.
Okay. Is that yours for me?
Yes.
Can you try to arrange one? Put it down next meeting?
Maybe
Okay, outdoor open burning.
Sir, excuse me, I didn't hear that.
She's gonna try to schedule a
Street
Streets and Public Works Committee, and we want to refer both those items
Yes.
to,
committee.
fine. I'm trying to make notes here, what action to take on them, so, okay.
Okay, moving right along. Outdoor open burning, Cuyahoga County ordinance suggested for adoption.
Yes, sir, I met with the Assistant Fire Chief, Fire Marshal Blaine Shirley, and Chief Howard Quigley of the Georgia Forestry Service, and they request that the City Council adopt a similar ordinance to Coweta County ordinance that limits outdoor burning.
Okay, can we, suggest that, my suggestion would be to ask the city attorney to, draw one up and present it for first reading.
We could certainly take this and find the appropriate place in the code and put something together if the council.
An ordinance providing that all city contracts exceeding $3,000 must receive a minimum of 3 bids from qualified contractors and be approved by the city council.
Yes, sir, this was an item requested by Councilmember King, and behind it, I have put the procurement ordinance, and it just so happened, while this was being talked about on the city manager's website for GMA, they had a little talk about, or an internet survey about spending authority, and I made a copy of that. It is not in your packet, but it's something to consider. However, I think from a management standpoint that the procurement ordinance is sufficient to implement anybody's recommendation, and in fact, it has worked very well. I would not recommend any amendments or changes to it other than saying that on all city projects, it has been followed.
All right, anybody got anything else on it? Questions or whatever?
Well, I would like to ask this question, and I'm referring to something that I heard under a previous administration, or maybe two. I thought that the council voted to allow the manager or mayor to spend up to $10,000, I thought, per day or per week without council approval. Now, is that true, or is it in the records anywhere? Because it was first $2,500, and then it went to $10,000. So, are there records to show that now?
My understanding is that that's not per day, that's per project. In other words, you can't just say, okay, I'm gonna paint that wall and spend $10,000. to do that, we'll do 10,000, do that, 10,000, do that. That's my understanding of it.
Where's the paperwork on it? I mean, where, so that we can see?
Well,
Well, it's source, I would say, it's state law and the ordinances of the city, the charter.
the procurement ordinance has an editor's note. It said ordinance number 04-2014 adopted February 24, 2014, set out provisions intended for use as a new article, Article 7, for purposes of clarity and at the editor's discretion, these provisions have been included as a new Article 9, which is the procurement ordinance. So, it came about in February the 24th, 2014. And basically, it talks about what is needed if you have expenditures of $2,500 or less, or more than $2,500, but less than $10,000. And sometimes when you try to get quotes from businesses, a lot of them will not give you a quote. Normally what we have done is ask for proposals. For example, the proposal for the sludge removal of the land application storage pond. We've got 3 of them. We removed the sludge for less money than any of them. When we went out for proposals to repair the floor or to remove the carpet and do the flooring to mitigate the mold or remediate the mold, we got no proposals or no responses. So it's sort of a mixed bag. Sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. And on all city projects, we have been successful in staying within the parameters of the procurement ordinance. So my suggestion is we make no changes.
I don't have anything.
You got anything? Your suggestion. Actually, like I stated before, I think we need to do something to clarify what we need to do something so that we, this finger pointing, who did what and all that, just, if everything comes to the council, I don't know what the dollar amount should be, but then nobody can say, oh my gosh, I didn't know. But think about it and talk about it at the next meeting, I guess.
Well, you said in the last meeting we were together that you had something in the making on that. Was that what you just stated?
Look
Okay.
at this ordinance.
Okay.
It already has to do it. But we need to decide, what we're gonna do as far as, the amount of money. I don't think I've ever exercise without coming before the council. There may have been one expenditure when I first come on board dealing with that smart fusion, training on that smart fusion, because the personnel changed. But other than that, I have not exercised that, part of the ordinances about spending more than 10,000 at all. So, anyway, anybody else?
Well, I mean, I think, maybe this will be unpopular, but I side with the city manager on, I think what we got in place works as long as it's followed, and it, I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, we all know why it's even being brought up. I'm just of the opinion, if the policy works when government's transparent. So I mean, and again, the whole purpose of it being brought up and the overall totality of it being utilized, I mean, we're comparing apples and oranges and trying to be reactive rather than proactive on implementing a policy that works. And yeah, I don't see any reason why it needs to be changed. That's just my opinion.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Your item on historic preservation item,
Yes,
what was it?
number 12.
Number 12.
This is for Mr. Mitchell. Would you please give me insight on number 12 statement in the HPC where it states, employ person if necessary to carry out the responsibility of the commission. And my reason for, while I wait to give me insight.
Okay.
So,
I see.
you see?
Yes, ma'am.
So please give me insight as to, and reason being, if the council wanted to appoint someone to, once our Welcome History Center is completed, appoint a chairperson, if you will, with the city council or with the HPC make recommendation?
Well, I think it comes down to who it's determined is going to operate that facility. And while this section of the code provides that that is a broad power that the HPC has, unless they have some money that's budgeted to them to allow that, then that's a power that's, for the most part, ineffective, because while it says they have the power to employ persons, if they don't have any money to pay them, then they'll probably have a hard time employing somebody. But I think that's a determination by the council and input from the HPC as to once you reach the point of being ready to open some welcome center or whatever it's going to be, who's going to operate that? Is that going to be a city employee, and is that going to be operated by the city, or is that going to be operated by the HPC? And if so, then some monies would have to be identified to provide them with the funding to employ such a person.
That's it. Anybody wanna react or question or? Nothing? Okay. Next order of business will be citizens' comment. We have Angela. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. How are you?
If you would, state your name and address for the record.
Angela Penley, 25 Canterbury Drive, Grantville, Georgia. The community has a right to public disclosure of information, sharing profits, offer input and transference of funds through voting or participating in community surveys to address aggregate demand based on socioeconomic diversity in our community. An economist is required to replace our city manager, to reduce expenses and increase collective self-governance. An economist would understand these principles. Our town no longer requires 2 attorneys. Our town requires civil governance with representatives who have the ability to remain calm under pressure, listen to constructive criticism, and improve the lives of everyone in the community. Our representatives should seek out every possible resource of revenue through grants, charitable donations, newly constructed infrastructure plans for development, and cooperative efforts utilizing internships and volunteers. Moreover, any city project should inspire competition in the marketplace rather than cronyism. Simply stated, please do the following. 1. Dismiss the city manager. 2. Hire an economist as a replacement. 3. Utilize the Foundation Center Outreach Center at Rutledge Center for grant research. 4. Utilize Three Rivers Regional Commission for project development and grant writing. 5. Utilize Microsoft Works calendar to organize reminders for every contract the city holds and prioritize dates of review at least 2 weeks prior to a vote. 6. Make the city charter publicly accessible on the city website. 7. Make the contract calendar accessible to the public on the city website. 8. Periodically request input in the form of community surveys from residents sent directly through the United States Postal Service in the same envelope as our utility bills. 9. Utilize bidding practices for city projects and select licensed, qualified, and insured companies. 10. Utilize cooperative services offered by government agencies to support community programs. 11. Create building codes for any new development project implementing self-sustaining building construction, such as the water collection design exemplified in the Summit Family YMCA of Noonan, Georgia, incorporating the least destruction of plant and wildlife possible and phytoremediation. 12. Please prioritize decreasing disparities and increasing social equity in decision-making. These statements were inspired from the political forum that was nonpartisan, and I went door to door asking people to read this and if they agreed, sign. And I have 2 pages of names, and I wore out a pair of shoes going around to see what other people thought before arriving here tonight. So thank you for your time for listening, and I hope that these comments help address some of the issues that were brought up tonight and that these things will become accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate it. This will see.
Marion Cishlik, 144 Arnold Street. So the appointment of the members to the Cemetery Trust, that was an illegal action? Mr. Mayor? Anybody?
I'm not the attorney, so I don't.
Yeah. Well, I don't know who to ask that question. I never.
That is a good question, though.
Yeah, I didn't read parliamentary procedure, so I'll have to ask you. Or Mr. Mitchell, if you have the answer.
No, this is your time.
Yeah. Anybody got a, Mr. Mitchell, do you have an answer?
I respond to the council, not to.
Sure. Sure. Mr. Mayor, council, do you have a, answer my question?
No, not now.
No?
That's the purpose of asking the question, so we can see if we can find one out for you.
Okay, let's say it was.
Your 3 minutes.
Okay, let's say it was. Then all the actions by that appointed trust would also be illegal. And number 3, that money needs to be returned to the trust because it was an illegal transfer of money. So you can work on all those 3, Mr. Mayor, and give me an answer. When will you have an answer? This year?
We can,
This year?
I don't know.
Next year?
I don't know that.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
Appreciate it. Eddie Markworth.
Eddie Markwood, 52 Post Street, Grantville, Georgia. I ain't got to ask anything about the cemetery trust because I think Sarge just kind of broke the nail in the coffin there. But as far as the internet feasibility study, surveys are great. You can send out a survey and ask everybody in Grantville if they wanted a Corvette, and they would all say yes. We need to know, is it feasible for them to own the Corvette? The feasibility study is going to tell you whether or not it is feasible for us as a city to enter into any kind of project, and is it feasible for the citizens to pay for it. It is important, it is needed, and it needs to happen quickly because they're not going to be in a hurry. Whoever you hire to do the study, they're going to take their time. And in the meantime, the citizens are going to be sitting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Is it a lot of money? Yeah, it's a lot of money. But I'd much rather see us spend $35,000 on a study to say don't spend $500,000 than to spend $500,000 because we think we want more votes later. So.
Thank you. Dee or James? Dee, are you speaking?
That's a lot.
We've got a veterans dinner. Okay, Mayor and members of the City Council, my name is Dee Berry, address 2 Post Street, Grantville. My comments are regarding 2 Post Street. 1 is sewer blockage, and 2 is utility rates. Dear Mayor and council members, today is Veterans Day, and I am a veteran resident of the city of Grantville. Regrettably, I find it necessary to make you aware of several monetary claims against the city. My initial claim relates to a written request that was prepared with paid invoice, documentation, and pictures attached, and filed with the city clerk's office on March 29th, 2018 for reimbursement of plumbing charges to unblock a city sewer located on College Street. After no reply, I filed a formal claim with the city clerk's office on May 15, 2018. The city manager has the complete file. To this date, I have not received a written response from the manager of the Grantville Utility Department. This repair totaled $1,554, and after patiently waiting for a response for 5 months, my wife spoke with the city manager. She was told that the manager did not approve the request, did not feel it was necessary to send me a written response to explain the reason, and the city was not going to reimburse me. I respectfully request a consideration and vote by the City Council regarding this administrative decision. Also, please note that previous owners of 2 Post Street informed us that the large city trees on College Street have been the cause of sewer blockage overflow in past years, and roots from these trees will cause a similar problem in the future. Number 2, my second claim involves excessive and erroneous utility charges for electricity, gas, water, and sewer fees. I have not been given a logical explanation why the meter readings are so high compared to last year's figures and fluctuates from $192 a month for utilities to $1,430 a month. To make matters worse, I just learned that in October 2017, my home utility rate was changed from residential to commercial without prior notice or explanation. I have paid the residential rate since 2006, and after asking for a copy of the Grantville Utility Company regulations regarding this rate change, was told that no documentation exists. My question is, why did the City Council approve this change? When did they approve it? I'm requesting an official audit of my utility bills and a refund of the excess charges. Hopefully we will receive a response from the city soon. If you need additional information, you can reach me. 678-621-3348. Best regards, James O'Berry, 2 Post Street, Grantville, Georgia.
Thank you, Ms. Terry. Terry? Would for the record state your name and address.
Terry Drury, Athens, Georgia, in Newnan, 31 Alpine in Newnan, so 2 addresses. Mr. Mayor and Council, I had no plans to speak to you this evening until I heard the discussion on the feasibility study. I want to see if I can clarify a few things, being someone who's been doing feasibility studies for almost 20 years on this particular issue on broadband, having done 35 years as a management consultant looking at various issues for CEOs of Fortune 50 companies and helping them make the right decision on which way they go. I will tell you that you have spent 2 months listening to the fox in the hen house. You have listened to 2 vendors who want to sell you something. You need a feasibility study that doesn't represent somebody selling you a product. You need somebody who has experience in doing this and understands the market and what it is, who has done feasibility studies, whose references have been checked by the city manager already, and I can have a proposal in your hand, an unsolicited proposal tomorrow for you to look at if you want to vote Monday. You need to do something. If you delay this any further, or if you do a request for proposals, send out RFPs for firms that do feasibility studies, you are not going to get anybody to respond who is worth doing it. I am only here, and the reason for it, prices of feasibility studies run double what we have told you, what we have told you may go up to, excuse me. The price that we're quoting in the non-solicited proposal, which I would have had here with me tonight, had I known this was going to be necessary, is $30,000 plus a potential $5,000 if you expand the project outside the city limits of Grantville. That's your call. If you want us to talk to Hoganville, Luthersville, and other places, it'd be another $5,000. If you don't, it won't. But you're going to spend $60,000, $75,000, $80,000 for a feasibility study, and there are incredible number of examples in the state of Georgia where communities paid that and got nothing different than what they're going to do. The feasibility study outline you will see tomorrow includes sending out questionnaires, but more importantly, you won't get the right answer from a written questionnaire and a utility bill. You're going to get a few people who will respond to that, who have a high level of interest and won't go to the trouble of mailing it back. You're gonna get some others who would subscribe to you, to your services, who won't even bother. What we have is a proprietary phone interview that we do with your citizens that takes about 15, 20 minutes apiece, and we find out what they're paying now, who they have their subscribers for, what they'll be willing to change, how much of that change is price sensitive, and how much of it would be for what services. Do they want internet, do they want TV, do they want cable, do they want satellite, what do they want? And that's what you have to decide. The other question was, we have to look at, should we spend $400,000 to $2 million? I will tell you the answer is neither one of those. The answer is going to be a combination of the two from 17 years of working with municipalities. Forget the 20 years doing these studies for all kinds of communication companies. You need to vote on this to get started. If you want us to do it, you need to vote Monday night. And since I've been listening 2 months of this conversation, it keeps being going, okay, here are these other people. And I don't mean that to sound rude or harsh. I'm just saying this is reality. If you want somebody who fools around with populations of 1,000 households, you're not going to get somebody who has experience to cover what you want to know. What this will tell you is not only whether you need fiber or you need wireless or you need a combination thereof, it will tell you how much of that ought to be. It will show you in what parts of town on a map that will show you which parts get fiber, which part gets wireless, how you cover it, and what the speeds will be. And you have to decide, based on the options we will give you, whether you want to just sell internet or whether you want to sell internet and TV and voice data and video. You want to do phone lines, you can do all of those things over the system that you will have. And it's a matter of your decision, not mine and not Nokia's and not ICA's, to decide what it is right for Grantville. But you cannot do that without the appropriate feasibility study. And anything else would be malfeasance. If you don't do a feasibility study and you just listen to vendors, you have a problem. And I can tell you the one thing you will get from us is we may tell you, no, you got no business being in this, because we're going to do a business plan rollout for you, included in the feasibility study, that says for the first 240 months of a 20-year finance plan, for example, this is how much you'll take in, this is how much you will spend, and this is how you'll amortize those costs. And it will have built-in cost increases for labor and everything else over that 20-year period. In addition to that, you're going to be looking at, should I do it, there's a line item for internet. And this is what those numbers would be. There's a line item for internet and TV, and what those numbers would be. There's a line item for internet, TV, voice data, and video. And what that would be, excuse me again. But it's a matter of what you want to have. But you cannot proceed by going to vendors. It just makes no sense. And you're going to be, and I will tell you, the world is full of people with all kinds of options and all kinds of new ideas that they're going to run for you. But until you do a comprehensive feasibility study, you got nothing for you to make a decision on. So I would ask you to vote on this Monday night, and let's get going and bring the services that people of Grantville deserve to the city of Grantville and its residents. And I appreciate you letting me spout off, because like I say, I wasn't planning to say anything, but what I heard was that this is no decision is also a decision, guys, and that's what I wanted to point out. So there, I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, anybody else? You have your phone? Come on up in the interest of time, go ahead, but make sure you fill it up before you leave, because we have to state your name and your address for the record.
Sure, I'm Matthew Bish, 787 Austin Road, Newton, Georgia. I represent ICA at this meeting. My father couldn't be here today. I wanted to thank you guys for considering our proposal. Just, in the interest of talking about the feasibility study, I think that, just from my perspective, I think that it's always great to get a second opinion, and I always think that it's prudent to make sure that the money that you're spending is correct. I would just like to say that it seems as though what was just said is that it would be difficult to find a different, provider of a feasibility study that would be as cost effective as the one that was mentioned. I would just say to, definitely, consider who's providing it, and consider also the service that they're, trying to sell you. in relation to our project, I believe that, you know, what we've submitted does provide significant cost savings to the city as opposed to a fiber optic network. I think that it also provides excellent coverage for your citizens at a cost that's very low. We've been providing services to the city in terms of IT for quite some time now. And, you know, if I may say so myself, I believe that, you know, we've done a very good job at that and providing you all significant value. We're local here in Noonan, and you know, we just appreciate the fact that you guys are all willing to consider our proposal, and you guys are all, you know, absolutely more than welcome to reach out to myself or to my father, Tim Bish, who gave the presentation earlier. If you know, if you have any more questions. For the record, my email address is just matt@icaconsulting.com. And you can feel free to call me or text me if you like. My phone number is 678-633-2700. That's 678-633-2700. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt.
And I'll make sure this is entered
Please
before I
complete
yeah.
that before you leave. Thank you. Anyone else? Nobody else. All right, brings us to city council comment. Mr. Wake.
I don't have any.
Mr. King.
It's been a very long night. Thank you all for coming out tonight and going through this work session with us. That's all.
Ms. Hines.
Thank you all for coming. As I watch the clock, I have missed Texas Ranger, and no, that's not good. I just want to say, give a big shout out to all the citizens in Grantville and the city of this lighthouse city for voting for me with a total of 509 votes for a percentage of 53.52. Thank you so much for doing that, and I know it was only by the grace of God that I was elected to serve this great city 4 more years. I promise you I will continue to serve you in integrity and in honesty. Thank you so much, and you have a great evening.
Thank you. Mr. Key.
Yeah, just right quick, thank you all for coming out. Again, this is our first work session, and I know it's lengthy. We've been here 2 hours. But I just wanted to again say that I appreciate everyone who came out and voted, and I hope that while I wasn't reelected, I have considered every moment that I've been able to serve in this position as an honor. And I spoke with Mr. Sells several times during the course of the election day. He and I prayed for one another. We had a wonderful, wonderful time chatting, and at any rate, in speaking with him, what I'm hoping that we can get done, and I'd have to go through the process appropriately, but I would hope that, not that I hope, because it's been an honor to serve up here. It's been a real honor, but the first work session of December, I hope would be his first work session as city councilman for Post 1. So the next council meeting will be my last one, as I'm going to take my leave, and my agenda is to do what's best for Grantville and to do what's right and keep continuity and flow going and to keep business going, and I'm not going to hang on just for one more month. He was elected, and I want him to go ahead and get in here and do his business, do the city's business. So I love you guys, and I'm always available, and it's been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, it brings it to me, and I like, Ms. Hines, want to thank everyone that did turn out to vote. It is a right a privilege, but it's also an obligation as far as I'm concerned. If you want to elect the right people. And I appreciate the ones that voted for me. The ones that didn't, I'll try a little harder to see if I can gain your trust. The other item I have, I need to bring up is, it's something I wish we didn't have to, but the council voted last month to have the cemetery wall over there looked at by the engineer. And they approved up to $2,000 for this. Then when we got to the point of the contract, the city manager raised some questions about whether that's the direction to go or not. So I asked the city, sent an email, each one of the members of the council on October 31st, asking them just to confirm that that's the way they want to go. And 3 of the council members did respond, but 1 I didn't get a response from at all. But that money, that money was taken from the cemetery trust and it was transferred to the general fund of the city of Grantville. Now, subsequently, it was moved from that account to another individual account within the city. It's still under the city of Grantville / cemetery trust. And I'm just of the opinion, when we did that, the city took on a fiduciary obligation. And so I'm at the point where I'm ready to sign this contract, and I'm not looking for a vote, but I want the council to give me guidance on this. Is this the direction we want to go? And Mr. Mitchell, am I right in the fiduciary obligation as far as, or I'm off base, or?
Well, I spoke with the city accountant today because of communication from the city manager regarding this. I spoke with the accountant to get his, because I didn't understand exactly how this account was set up and where it was set up, and so I wanted to try to get answers to that. And his indication to me was that this is considered a city account. The account that the money's in now, it would be part of the city's audit. And as you stated, that the city has a fiduciary responsibility for those funds, created at least in part by the fact that they were initially placed in the city's general fund, and then removed from the general fund and placed into this separate account, but still an account that is a city of Grantville account. So that seems to be the status of that, as I learned from the accountant when I spoke to him today.
Well, that's the understanding I had. So, and again, I'm not asking for a vote, but the ones that responded, is that still, I guess I'm asking?
Well, I voted yes on that in the meeting, but I had some reservations. You played the public safety card when you brought that up. You actually mentioned, if I remember right, well, I'll just tell the voters that you're not concerned about their safety. So I voted yes for it, and I did, and I stand behind that. But, and I think, you keep referencing to the money being put in I think the investigation is gonna figure all this out when it's all said and done. The money was put in a city account to begin with because you rushed the wall to be built. I heard you do it in a meeting here before I got sworn in. So, I mean, but I voted for that. If I didn't answer your email, but I voted for that, and I ain't gonna change my mind now. If you wanna spend, like I said, I think Mark and I both asked, why didn't you spend the rest of the money that was in the cemetery fund account? If that was what you were asking here, I hope I just answered it.
I'm just asking if people still stand by what they answered the other day.
No, I did.
Nobody changed their mind, and I'll take that as a yes. All right. Brings us to the city manager.
Well, it's fair to say that I feel that the city of Grantville was the custodian of the city of Grantville Cemetery Trust Funds, and I will stand on that position, that it was a separate and restricted account, and that it was handled in that manner. Yes, it's in the city's coffers, but the city of Grantville acted as a custodian of that money. That has been my position from day one, and I put it in plenty of emails and stated it, and I will remain with that position. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell.
I have nothing further.
No reason to go into executive session. All right. Nothing else come before the council. Adjournment in order. So moved. Motion and a second. Second. Motion.